I received a game key for Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass from Penguin Pop Games for review purposes. Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass originally launched on PC back on August 7th of 2018 as a solo project developed and published by Casey Ozumi. After years of building a reputation as one of the more ambitious RPG maker games out there, it finally made the jump to consoles on February 5th of 2026, with Penguin Pop Games handling publishing duties. The entire game was built by Ozumi himself using RPG Maker, and that alone is impressive given how dense, long, and mechanically layered the final product is. At a glance, it looks like a colorful, Earthbound-inspired indie RPG, but it quickly makes it clear that it is aiming for something much bigger and much stranger than a simple nostalgia throwback. The story opens quietly, with Jimmy waking up to a lullaby from his mother. You are introduced to his family and their dynamics before being sent out on a simple errand to collect honey alongside his tough, reluctant older brother, Buck. From there, the game slowly unravels into something far more unsettling, as Jimmy's dream world expands and the threat of the pulsating mass begins to loom over everything. While there technically is a central plot about saving people and stopping this growing horror, the game is far more interested in ambiguity than clean answers. It presents events as they appear through a child's imagination, leaving much of the meaning buried beneath symbolism and tone rather than spelled out directly. This puts it firmly in the same lineage as games like Earthbound, Undertale, Deltarune, Omori, and Lisa, with an upbeat surface hiding an undercurrent of melancholy and discomfort. That tonal contrast is very deliberate, even if it occasionally veers into territory that can feel a little heavy-handed or knowingly creepy for its own sake. Personally, some of the clown-like juxtaposition of childlike innocence and horror can come off as cheesy, but there is no denying that the game has moments that are genuinely unsettling and effective. What makes the narrative interesting is how layered it becomes the longer you play. There is the story you are actively experiencing, and then there is the underlying implication that this entire world is shaped by Jimmy's fears, desires, and emotional blind spots. Locations, enemies, and even throwaway interactions often carry symbolic weight that only becomes clearer much later. At the same time, the storytelling is intentionally messy. It jumps between ideas, tones, and revelations in a way that can feel amateurish or unfocused, like a kid desperately trying to tell a story that feels important to them but struggling to keep it all straight. That can be frustrating at times, but it also feels honest, and in many ways, that roughness is part of the point. Gameplay is where Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass really separates itself from being just another RPG Maker curiosity. Because Jimmy is a child, the world and its inhabitants feel playful and exaggerated, but everything is rooted in his perspective. One of the game's core mechanics is Jimmy's ability to empathize with enemies. After encountering certain monsters, he can imagine himself as them, gaining their abilities both in and out of combat. Transformations are not just cosmetic, they directly affect how you explore the world and how you approach battles. The green-headed goon can push objects and shake NPCs. The gooey slime can slip through drains and narrow cracks, and the flower form can grow vines to reach new areas. These transformations are essential for puzzle solving and optional exploration, giving the world a sense of constant discovery. Jimmy is not alone on his journey either. His family joins him over time, which gives the party a very different dynamic than the usual group of strangers found in most RPGs. The game is also long. A straightforward playthrough can easily take 30 to 40 hours, while doing side content, optional bosses, and post-game material can push that number well past 50 or 60. Some players have spent over 100 hours with it. This is not a small side project that you breeze through in a weekend. There is a real sense of scale here, and with that comes both strengths and weaknesses. Exploration is dense and often rewarding. There are towns to revisit, secrets to uncover, NPCs to follow up with, and systems layered on top of each other. One feature is the bank system, which allows you to store money and earn interest over time. This matters because dying in combat causes you to lose half of the money you are carrying, which can be painful after long stretches of grinding. Stopping by the bank becomes a genuine strategic choice rather than a novelty. Equipment and manuals offer incremental customization through armor-like slots and extra abilities, while standard RPG stats like attack, defense, magic, luck, and agility all play their expected roles. None of this is revolutionary on its own, but it comes together in a way that feels flexible and player-driven. Another surprisingly deep system is the furniture mechanic. By finding, buying, or even stealing furniture, you can decorate your clubhouse where you can listen to music tracks you have unlocked. Furniture provides passive buffs to the entire party, and completing full furniture sets grants even stronger bonuses. It is a small idea that ends up tying progression, exploration, and customization together in a satisfying way. On top of that, NPCs themselves often have arcs that play out over the course of the game. Characters like the information guy start as simple joke NPCs, and gradually become more endearing and memorable, making it rewarding to check back in with the world as it changes. The game does not shy away from disturbing imagery either. Beneath its bright colors are moments of genuine horror and emotional discomfort. Peaceful beaches hide dead whales, toys imply self-harm, and familiar spaces conceal grotesque monstrosities. It taps into the way childhood fears can be sudden, confusing, and deeply upsetting. This emotional dissonance can be powerful, but it is also one of the areas where the game can overdo it. The shock value sometimes loses its impact, simply because the game asks you to sit with it for too long or too often. But again, that can also be the point. Combat is classic turn-based RPG fare. As you explore, enemies will appear to you by either a green or red exclamation mark above your head, complete with random encounters. Green encounters can be skipped entirely, while red ones force you into battle. Fights offer the usual options like attacking, using abilities, items, buffs, debuffs, and status effects. Jimmy can switch between his different transformations during combat, each with unique skills. Playing as a transformation levels it up independently, and eventually unlocks abilities that can be equipped permanently on Jimmy, reducing the need to constantly swap forms. Some abilities are genuinely clever, like stealing weapons from enemies so they are left standing helplessly while you finish the fight. Each family member has a role, with Buck leaning heavily into offense and Jimmy's mom offering strong healing options. But equipment and ability combinations allow for a lot of experimentation. With the right setup, even a support-focused character can become an effective damage dealer. This flexibility is one of the combat system's biggest strengths. At the same time, the game demands patience. There is a lot of grinding, especially later on, and bosses can feel like health sponges. The pacing suffers because powerful symbolic moments are often followed by long stretches of repetitive combat, which dulls their emotional edge. Optional endgame content pushes this even further, asking for extreme level investment that many players simply will not want to commit to. Visually, the game has a strong cartoon style that fits its tone well. Early enemies like clouds, bees, and musical instruments give way to increasingly unsettling designs as the game progresses. Environments are varied and readable, with clear visual language for puzzles and pathways. While some enemy art feels more inspired than others, the overall presentation is consistently imaginative and effective at supporting the game's themes. The audio is another highlight. The soundtrack leans heavily on guitar-driven melodies mixed with scratchy lo-fi beats. It creates an atmosphere that feels both playful and uneasy, perfectly matching the shifting tone of the world. Even when individual tracks do not stand out on their own, they work extremely well in context. Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass surprised me. I went in mostly blind and came away impressed by just how much is packed into it. It is ambitious, messy, heartfelt, and occasionally frustrating. The grinding and pacing issues are real, and the constant tonal whiplash will not work for everyone. Still, the depth of its systems, the creativity of its combat and transformations, and the emotional weight it manages to carry make it something special. It might just have one of the best endings to an RPG I've ever witnessed. It is a long commitment and not an easy recommendation for players who bounce off traditional RPG structure, but for those willing to give it a try, it is a strange, memorable, and quietly powerful experience that feels far bigger than its humble RPG Maker roots. I give Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass an 8.5 out of 10.